Okay, so to get started, I just have my four basic colors. My grass green, I have a tiny bit of forest green in here. I have my cerulean blue and then my amethyst purple for the flowers eventually. So to get started today, I am going to go ahead and start at the top and get my sky going so that way I can get my blue in there. And while my blue is drying a little bit, I'll go ahead and put my clouds to kind of get them nice and blended. And then while that is drying, I will go ahead and do my grass, my green, and then kind of work my way from there. So, and I promise I'm gonna get better lighting. This is kind of just what I'm working with for today. So to start with, we are going to go ahead and do the beautiful blue sky. So as you can see, I'm kind of going, I've learned that I need to go all the way across so I don't get those weird like lines in there from when I start and stop and pick up the brush. So I do try to go and finish the complete stroke to minimize those kinds of lines. So yeah, we're not gonna go super far down in order to allow more of the meadow to show. So that way my proportions for the humans aren't messed up by a misplaced horizon, essentially, where the sky and the grass meet. So I think I'm gonna go just about there for my sky. Now, like I said, I'm one of those people. I will paint the edges. I'm gonna set my little palette down there, and I'm gonna go ahead and paint my top. Even though I'm pretty sure my top is gonna get covered with something and it's not gonna actually be seen, I don't know. I always paint the edges of these wrapped canvases like this. So we're gonna go ahead and paint my edges. I'm not as careful with the edges as far as like the whole line thing goes until they kind of like meet right here. I do make sure I fill in all the little holes that you seem to miss all the time. But then I do try to carry out nice long brush strokes to even everything out. Get a little bit more blue. And I will go ahead and do this side. And I'll do this side. And now what I do to help like the side lines there is I will go ahead and go back through and carry out some lines to even out the lines that you tend to get from doing the edges. And then carry it through. And a little bit more blue on this side. And for this, I just kind of do my best. And some of this, some of these line edges, what I may do to minimize them is use them for my clouds. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure this is all nicely done. Okay. Then I'm going to go ahead and put my big, beautiful brush down there in my water. There we go. I forgot to put the white on my palette, so we're going to go ahead and do that. So we are going to, I'm going to go ahead and use a 3 brush for my clouds. And while I'm doing that, I am going to tell you a little bit of my story. Now, I've always kind of been raised as a believer, but it wasn't anything like we weren't super church going, or like anything like that really. So it wasn't, while we believe, it wasn't like a whole lot of, I guess, like normal church going stuff. Until I started going to church on my own for the most part in high school. I actually went to Pathway Community Church in Toledo, Ohio. That's where I was born and raised. And my dad was raised in that church. That's where he went to church when he was a kid. That's where my grandma went, and her sisters. So it was essentially a family church. A lot of the people there knew my grandma and my aunt, or I guess my great aunt technically, but they knew my dad. Like, they remembered him from when he was a kid, little, going there. So it was really cool for me to go there. And I think I started in my junior year, because then in between junior year and senior year, I went to a church camp. Yeah. And then I joined the Navy right out of high school. I like, my 18th birthday was the day I graduated boot camp. So like less than a month after my graduation, I was on the bus to boot camp, well, to Cleveland to fly to boot camp, but that's the point. And I drifted away. I still believed. I was still very much a believer and all that. I had drifted, like we all kind of do when life gets in the way, especially if we're raised in the church or early believers. It's just one of those things. So I got a few little clouds in there. Again, the wispy, not like big, huge scene clouds, is not what I was going for. So I have a few like little streaky clouds. There we go, streaky clouds. So while that part is drying, I'm going to go ahead and use my green and just start going through here and putting my green down for my grass. And I'm starting with this grass green. So back to my story. I had drifted. I got married extremely young. It hindsight 2020, all that good stuff. It probably, okay, it wasn't the best idea, but it made me who I am today. So I guess that part, it kind of is what it is. Now, after a few years, I knew I was missing something. Even my mom knew I was missing something, and that something was God. It was church and being around other believers, because my husband at the time, my now ex, was not. He was not a believer. He didn't believe in that. And so I was searching in a couple of different places depending on where I lived, and I never really found a church home until my first one would have been up in Maryland when I lived up there. I found something in the church that I had been going to up there, called Freedom Church. Bel Air was their main campus, and then they had a campus in Rising Sun, and one in Baltimore, White Marsh. And then I believe they're also building one campus in Abingdon as well. I believe it was Abingdon. But while there, I was confronted by God through several sermons. I knew the pastor was talking to me. He probably didn't know he was talking to me. He was probably talking to a lot of us. But in my heart, he was talking to me. Now, this is where I'm going to go ahead and warn you guys that there is sensitive talk. I had a miscarriage at 7 weeks pregnant. My first pregnancy ended in that miscarriage. And because of the way that I got pregnant, which is a discussion for later, I'm not trying to get into that right now. I knew very, very early on that I was pregnant. And it was very much wanted. But I was told the day after Mother's Day, and the day after I announced to essentially everybody, like, that wasn't family. I had told my family as soon as I knew. So I was told that the heartbeat was slowing. It seemed fine during the first ultrasound, but now during this one, it had slowed. And so that was, I think, yeah, that was a Monday. And then Wednesday, the heartbeat had stopped. So I had a miscarriage. And I will say that is not something I wish on my worst enemy. Not that I really have one, to be honest with you. But if I did, I would not wish that kind of heartbreak and pain on them. And yes, it was early, but it was a lot of what could have been hurt, you know? I was very angry. Like, very, very angry with God and with the whole situation. Why would you let me get pregnant if you're going to take it away from me? You know, the whole thing. And despite going to a chaplain who I thought would help kind of heal or give me some kind of advice or something, it didn't work. So there was that, and I never really trusted anybody with my healing after that. Obviously God included. Because here I was trying to get help from somebody who should have been representing him, and I got nothing out of that meeting. So I ended up getting getting a surgery that did help, and I got pregnant again. Had a scare, but she is now a very feisty, sassy 4-year-old who tries me every day. Such is the way with kids, though. And I thank God for my rainbow every day, because I don't know where I'd be without her, without the blessing of carrying her to full term. Well, mostly full term, 37 weeks, but that isn't the point of this conversation. So I had my rainbow, and I was still so angry. So angry. It was not until I can't remember exactly the sermon or what was talked about, but there was a lot of like health things talked about. And at some point I felt like God was talking to me through the pastor, saying, let it, not necessarily let it go, but give it to me. Give me your anger. Give me your hurt, your pain. And so I did. Going to pause there to show some progress. So here's my progress. As you can see, my blue with a few little streaky clouds up here. And here's my green for my grass, my meadow. I'm going to go kind of through here with some of my forest green and kind of define it a little bit. And yeah, so that's kind of my progress so far. And I will be right back. Okay, hello again, everybody. I left off with, I had finished my sky with my streaky clouds, as I call them. And I had finished my basic green grass, and then I had to eat, and the kiddo had to eat. So I am now back, and I'm going to add a tiny bit of definition throughout here with some darker green, and then add in a few little purple wildflower type of things. And I was kind of talking about my story. And I had left off with my church in Maryland, where God essentially challenged me to give my pain to him. At this point, I had already rededicated my life to him. And so that was, it was a defining moment in the relationship. Um, because I could choose to trust God and give him my pain. I could choose to know that he would comfort me and understand my pain and my anger, the hurt that was caused by the miscarriage. And the other side was that I could more or less um, prolong it, prolong the hurt and the suffering and the pain, and if I did that, I wasn't trusting God. And when you go through something like that, honestly, the most important thing that you can do is trust God. And find a way to let him heal from within. I'm not saying that it's going to be easy or that you'll never think about it again or it's magically fixed, magically healed. I'm not saying that at all because it's not any easier. It's not something that just goes away. But you can have peace. You can have at least some measure of peace in your life if there is that trust that I'm going to trust you, God, and give this pain to you, give this heartache. And so I chose to trust. I gave him that pain and anger, man, that anger, just to release it. Holding on to it for that, holding on to it for 3.5, 4 years. It changes you when you hold on to something like that. When you don't have support, or anybody around you who understands, because I didn't. Nobody in my family experienced this. I am the first, and honestly, I pray to God that I'm the only. I don't wish this for anybody. But it changes you, and so being able to let go was honestly so freeing that it was almost immediate. The weight lifting felt almost immediately. Like it's difficult to describe, but the peace that comes from giving him my feelings surrounding that is incredible. I still think about my lost child. And I know that my daughter and I we have a little guardian angel in heaven thinking and watching over us. And there was a reason why I got Deanna. And that decision has changed my life. I am so much more devoted to my relationship with God and Jesus than I have ever been. And it was because I chose to trust. And then I chose to trust some more and move where he tells me to move, do what he tells me to do, and that led me to where I'm at now. And so I find a new church. And this church is where I found my community. I started attending the very first Sunday in January this year because I just moved back to this area mid-December. And so, naturally I was trying out a couple of churches, trying to find the right place for me. And I knew that first Sunday at this particular church that it was my home church. It was what I was looking for. It is a decent sized church. It has 3 locations, but they push small community. And actually, they were pushing their small community kind of like beginner part when I was there that first Sunday, and it called to me. And so here I am, almost a year later. I'm still a couple months shy of a year, but almost a year later. And I'm in one community group, and it's called leading, it's facilitating, but I'm in essentially 2 groups, 2 different days. My daughter loves the church. I love the church. It's so amazing. And I'm so very blessed. And so that brings me to today. And why I am doing this project. Finally. Like I said before, it's something that has been in my brain for months. Like March, April timeframe was when the original idea was put in my head. And then more recently, the bigger part of it with the cross and the chains, was revealed to me a couple weeks ago, and through a lot of prayer and help, tonight I can finally say I got part 1 done. And I could not do this without the amazing support of both of my community groups, my best friend Steph. I couldn't do it without my daughter and my mentor, my church mentor, who's helping me and leading me into a deeper relationship with him. through spending more time with him, through prayer and reading my Bible and pushing me to do this as my date with Jesus. And so I truly hope that if you're watching this, it helps you in some way. And if you've ever experienced a deep hurt like the loss of a child, whether that was in pregnancy, early pregnancy, late pregnancy, anything like that, please know that my prayers are with you. And you can absolutely reach out in the comments, and just know that there's others out there. You don't have to suffer in silence. It's such a taboo thing that people make taboo for no reason. Women, parents shouldn't have to suffer their losses in silence by themselves. That's not what God wanted. That's not what he wanted at all. We're supposed to be in community. And so that's truly what I hope. And if you're not a believer and you're just here for the painting, I still pray that one day God will reach your heart. And I do hope you enjoy the painting. But as for part 1, so here we go. So some straight lines to hopefully add a little bit of definition to my grass, some wavy lines, kind of hoping to show like there's some kind of movement in the photo or in the painting, I guess, with my little purpley wildflowers scattered throughout. Most of them are facing the same direction, going kind of in this direction, but there are a couple that are going the opposite way. But I will use that in my next step when I go and add the specters as if they're pushing them the opposite way of where they're blowing. So that is where I'm going to leave off for tonight. The rest of my painting is nice and dry, so just letting the rest of this dry out overnight, and I may do some touch-ups here and there before my next session. However, my goal for the next session is to put Jesus, put my specters in here, and then add Jesus, and kind of create my 2 scenes out of this one canvas. So just a little preview on, let's turn around again, here we go. So on this side of the canvas, we're going to be able to see Jesus stepping in, okay? So he's going to be stepping in from this side, going this direction. The specters are going to be kind of floating from this direction over here, away from the person. So kind of like right where this particular flower is, over. So this side will be the second scene. And here you will see Jesus probably right around here. I'll use Jesus to like help show this one getting pushed down a little bit more. And the intention is for him to look like he's running. He's running to our person. He's going to be surrounded by these others that are walking away. So we have the specters that are walking away from this person in their deepest need. And we have Jesus coming onto the scene and running to them. because that's what he does. He runs to you. He doesn't walk or stroll or take his time. He runs. He runs to us. So that is the idea for step 2 or part 2 of this first initial canvas. Again, thank you guys for coming to my channel and watching, and I hope that you all have a wonderful night and an awesome weekend, and be safe out there. I know Friday is Halloween. For those of you, it's October 29th, 2025. And so, yeah, in a couple days, it's Halloween. Be safe, have fun, collect all the candy. And I hope to see you guys again for part 2. Thank you.